Lightwave. So somewhere in 2016, when President John Dramani Mahama was in charge of this country, a company called Lightwave approached Ghana with a unique product. And I say product because subsequent events will show why I refer to it as a unique product. In the private, industry, in the private world, the unique product that a company has is what makes them get what we refer to as competitive advantage, meaning they can secure a job based on the offering they are making, which others don't have. And so Lightwave showed that they have some unique offering that if Ghana buys into and is ready to pay for, exchange for the value, we can move from an old system where folders are used, records get missing, you can't really rely on identity. One person can be operated using identity of the other and other. You can stay away from that and then modernize your system. So John Dramani Mahama's government on the 1st of April 2016 signed a contract with Lightwave at the cost of $6 million to network 23 health facilities in the Central Region. These are all in the ministry's archives. This happened. They finished the work December 2017. When Lightwave networked all these facilities, which included the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital, they approached the then MPP administration with the findings of the work. We didn't truncate it when we inherited power in January. They started somewhere in April. The contract was signed in April. The work showed that they had been able to connect all these hospitals. And their unique offering was really true. So when you go to Winneba Hospital and they attend to you, and you have to be referred to Cape Coast, which is a referral within Central Region, you needn't take any particulars. Just you mentioning your ID, that's unique ID, makes them access all your data from, Winneba. And the doctors can actually continue with what they did in Winneba. So when they showed it to our government, the new government, as in the MPP administration, this, I would not mention names, but I know there were some who were like, hey, wait a minute, this was a contract that was signed in the previous administration. Are you sure we are going to get value? But the then minister was able to look at the work they had done together with his technical people and realize the value, approach cabinet, and was able to convince cabinet, and cabinet approved for the ministry to continue with a national rollout, because the 23 was like a pilot under the NDC administration. So
is it 23 or 25, the pilot?
I think I have read one of my notes that mentioned 25. And just recently, I'm also picking at 23. But whatever be the case, it was a contract sum of $6 million to network at about 23, 25 facilities in the Central Region. I stand to be corrected if anybody else. Now, the contract was sent to the PPA because one of the basis for doing the sole source is when you have a unique product which other competitors don't appear to have or don't have. Because this is someone who has brought a product to the NDC administration, had delivered on a product, and now wants it to be scaled to the rest of the country. You can't now go and give it to a new person when you've not tested the technology and work of the new person. So the documents that was sent to PPA was to roll out to the whole of Ghana 950 facilities at a cost of $100 million. In fact, PPA document was $186 plus million. But later, when the transcripts paperwork was sent to the Ministry of Finance, their value for money audit team did some work and got back to Ministry of Health that we will not do 186, we can do 100 for the whole of Ghana, 950. So the vendor signed the agreement with Ghana, as in the Ministry of Health, to do the project in milestones. Now, I have some very quick breakdown. Out of the 950, four out of the 950 are actually teaching hospitals. 6 are regional hospitals. District hospitals and charge facilities are 243. Psychiatric hospitals 2. Polyclinics 49. And then health centers, which are lower units, about 646. When you add this, you get 950. But look at the breakdown in terms of payments. how much of the $100 million is for which. The 4 teaching hospitals account for $21 million for their work in terms of the volume and the scope. The 6 regional hospitals account for $22 million. All the 243 district hospitals across Ghana, plus CHAG facilities, was to be $29 million. Now, you have the polyclinics, the 49 polyclinics coming to $6 million. The breakdown, I think, yes, because they are figures, I rewrote them, let me go to my, sorry. So that I get it right.
Anyway, so you're watching Good Morning Ghana on Metro Television, and Dr. Okoe Boye is here. He's, of course, representing the New Patriotic Party. He's telling us what he knows about the Lightwave management systems matter, which came to the fore following the Government Accountability Series, which was put together by the Ministry of Communications, and not Ministry of Communications, but by the Minister for, by the Presidency, let me put it that way.
Yeah.
And so many issues have come up. There have been some reactions from the erstwhile Minister under the Nana Dankwa administration. Fortunately, he's here to try and tell us what he knows about this deal, which some have termed as a bad one. And for, of course, by the health minister, and that's why we're told that it would be discontinued. Yes.
So let me go through it. The teaching hospitals is $21 million. The work for the regional hospitals is $22 million. All district hospitals, metropolitan, municipal, leprosarium, CHAG is $29. 2 psychiatric hospitals is $1 million. Polyclinics, 49 polyclinics is $6 million. The 646 health centers was going to cost $17 million. And then the miscellaneous was $4 million. So this is a breakdown for the $100 million, which is in the contract that is lying at the Ministry of Health and is at the disposal of the minister. So immediately you look at this, you see an interesting phenomenon. It's not every health facility that has the same level of cost when you bring it on board. So all the 646 health centers, which are smaller health facilities, guess what? In terms of nominal, when you're just looking at 950, treating all the same, constitutes 68% of the contract. But it doesn't mean you have to pay $68 million for it. Guess how much the breakdown it is? It's $17 million. Please, have you gotten it? So if you are not privy to the details, you might think that, oh, how come this company has done more than 50% of the job, but Ghana has treated him so badly by paying $17 million? But it is because all those units, although there are many, they didn't even match the 4 teaching hospitals' work. This is, if you are calm, with all due respect to Akandoh, and you are not in a hurry to hang your own brothers, you run to town and tell people they've paid them 76 million, 77% of the money, but they've done less than half. So see the interesting scenario. As we speak, by December 2024, when we were handing over, in the notes, Lightwave had done all the 4 teaching hospitals, all the regional hospitals, all the district hospitals, all psychiatric hospitals, all polyclinics, and they had done 157 out of the 646 health centers. When you add the cost for the ones they've done, they chose the heavy ones, the volume ones. The cost comes to about $80-something million. So 80 million plus of the work has been done, left with about 19-point-something million. That's when you look at the scope. But if you go and look at just the numbers, you say, oh, the man has done 450. Where did he get the big money from? This is a simple understanding of what is happening. And it's not surprising that the man did the heavy work. The ministry intentionally told the vendor, don't go down and deal with the small ones. Go to where a lot of Ghanaians need this service. And so the first point I'm making is that if you hear Honorable Akandoh create the impression that And he used the phrase, I wrote it. I normally like to write very weird phrases. I call them weird if they are not fair to someone. In Parliament, when he was answering questions, he said he doesn't want a recurrent of the mess. With all due respect, the 450 in terms of volume of work, even is more than the amount that you are saying that we have paid. That's the first point. The second point is that an impression was created that Ghana has gone to give a contract to a foreigner, and the data is not in our hands. We are helpless, with all due respect, until December when we handed over in January somewhere to the new administration. Every data, every health record on the 25 million Ghanaians that Lightwave has on their system belongs in the contract to Ghana, and we have always owned it. This talk also that the data is sitting in India, with all due respect to Honorable Akandoh, is a misrepresentation. All the data sits on our server, the central hub, which is at the Ministry of Health building, which is just about some 200 meters from your studios. Now, another thing which Honorable Akandoh has said, which with all due respect is a misrepresentation, is that Lightwave is controlled, it's not Ghana controlled. But now we are bringing a Ghana Health Information Management System, which is Ghana controlled. I made some revelation, and I think on some platforms it's come to confirm what I said. If you hear the name, you might be tempted to think that now Ghana, and when I say Ghana, an agency of state, is now doing the work we gave to someone. It's not true. It's a private company. I know their name, but I will not mention it here. Who has been a long-time competitor of Light. When I say competitor, he's also in the industry of providing solutions for digitization in hospitals, and has been wanting Lightwave's job. They are the ones that are doing this job. But instead of putting their name on the project, so that we'll know that now they are taking over the project, Honorable Akandoh has named the thing Ghana. And the excuse he gave, or the reason, was that when they finish the job, they will give it to the government of Ghana. But the one Lightwave is doing too, if we had resolved the issues, you see that Honorable Akandoh says that the date on the paper, the contract has expired. With all due respect, the timelines to be met is not only dependent on the vendor. The vendor works with the state, as in the hospitals. And I have been there. There are occasions when the vendor is ready. A hospital gives reasons why they can't start. It's a multi-year project, so you have this back and forth. The most important thing is to resolve it amicably. If they have done the heavy load, and I showed you the breakdown, which is 80% of the workload, the 20% with their experience and everything is just around the corner. You have the option as a minister, I give you that respect, either to say, go home, I'll still not give you the 20% because your contract has expired. Or you can say, well, we'll talk about an extension, but these are the new terms. What you shouldn't do is to just go to your office and lock your door and say that because that contract on paper has expired, the date has passed, all outstanding issues, you can go to your house, I also go to your house. Immediately you do that, that's where these issues of what about the data in their care? What about the money that is left out of the 100? Because remember, at the 100 million, we've paid about 70-something million. Well, you can say that the rest of the work has not been done, so you are giving it to someone. But even with that, if you have gone to a third-party platform, it's possible the mediation or arbitration will show that still work with them because this is the value, or don't work with them. But please, you get it.
I get that. So
the point I want to make here is that there are some few reasons why we're having these disturbances in the system. And let me quickly say that Honorable Akandoh has been saying on and on that the company is sabotaging Ghana, the turn of switches. On your show, I want to give an explanation. Before Honorable Akandoh became minister, before NDC administration came, the whole of Ghana was working seamlessly, no problem with Lightwave. This is how come the problem started. And forgive me for saying that it appears the posture of the ministry towards the vendor is different from how we were dealing with them. And I will explain. There is a committee referred to as a steering committee, which brings the minister together. In fact, I was the chair. Whoever was minister was chairing. The minister, Lightwave, their management or engineers, Ghana Health Service, teaching us the whole system. We sit almost every quarter to look at how the project is unfolding. That's where you get first-hand knowledge, you query things and all that. For the 10 months that Honorable Akandoh became minister, that meeting has not been had. And because...
And you know this for a fact?
Oh, yes. They've not had a steering committee meeting.
Okay.
The minister can even delegate someone to call it. It's not happening.
Okay.
And because I am interested in how we can get solutions, it's not about NDC MPP. Remember this project, like I said, started on NDC. It's about Ghana. So I tried to find out from the company, why is it that you're having these disruptions when everything was fine when we were there? And then they made it clear, doctor, unlike some of you that we can just say we want to come to the ministry and talk about some things, when we try to approach, it's not easy. You understand? So then I was like, but what is happening? Only to also learn that the minister said he has done an audit. So all this while that he was not meeting, the IT team, they were not meeting. The ministry says they've asked someone to do an audit on Lightwave. And the minister invited Lightwave and told them, and I have the letter, that, hey, give us the source code to your software so that we handle this program ourselves. And let's only talk about the service contract, how you can support them. And the contract we signed with Lightwave is the same contract that NDC administration signed at Ajomama. The system which manages the whole program, which is a Lightwave Health Information Management System, is not the property of Ghana. That is the intellectual product they had which made them get the contract. But it is the data and the whole infrastructure which is that of the property of Ghana. So if the contract comes to an end and they are exiting, the best you can give them is a service support level management, because they are the originators of the software of the program. Even with that, you can decide to let go of them, get some other person who claims he can still manage that system. That one is another matter. But the point I'm making is that nowhere in the contract did it state that the intellectual property, the unique product they have, which made it possible for them in the industry to get it ahead of their competitors, should come to us. And I'm not surprised they are doing that. No IT firm in the world, and those who are into IT can call, would come and do a job for you and hand over the unique product which made them get the job ahead of others and say that take it. But it appears Honorable Akandoh in his pronouncement mixes the management, the software which is managing the whole thing with the data which has been collected and says that the data is in their hands. The data is in our hands, still is in our hands. There is no data that Honorable Akandoh wants to access that he can get. But this is what happened. My checks show that Lightwave approached the minister. I've been a minister before. Moro, there are occasions when an agreement you have with another entity as government can expire on paper. But because there's an ongoing relationship, normally the entity would approach you and say, can we work on some paperwork, either a contract extension or some form of agreement, so that as I continue to offer services, later when I make claims, it will have a legal basis. It is standard practice. I've been in office before. That's not to say by force, extend the contract to. It's to say that let's commit because I'm still giving you support service. My checks show that as at now, the minister and them couldn't agree to have some form of support service. And so Lightwave was like, we are paying our workers and we have no basis to come and claim because you've not succeeded in signing it with us. And this is what affected integrations. When I say integrations, the Lightwave system, after we had rolled out, later realized that there were other benefits or offerings the system could give, which were not even in the contract. Like it could help National Health Insurance to validate which people had been on valid insurance or not, through just another integration to the system. And the hospitals didn't need a whole software and hardware to do that validation. We then later realized that hospitals could make use of their system and connect the software straight to their banks, so that when payments are made, it doesn't pass through somebody's hands before going to the bank. So these integrations were being handled on like a bilateral basis through other means to pay for some of these services. All these services suffered when the issues of contractual or writing, doing paperwork were not happening. And lastly, I made some checks. Apparently, almost all the chat facilities are running as we speak seamlessly with Lightwave. But some Ghana Health facilities, Ghana Health Service, which traditionally belong to government, for some strange reasons, I say strange, the connectivity they should have, internet, which normally gives them access to Lightwave from a remote to access and support them. Some places the connectivity is gone. Whether it is deliberate so that they cannot provide service or it is by some arrangement, these things are happening. So these are some of the things that is making all of a sudden a system that was working fine now have issues. So Moro, with all due respect, this impression that we've paid money for work that has not been done, the breakdown I have showed you, which Honorable Akandoh has, if we are all honest with ourselves, wouldn't have created the impression that we've paid a 76 when 50% has been done, with all due respect. This explanation also will let us understand that it was never true that our data was in the hands of someone who didn't give it to us. Anything I wanted, in fact, even back end, IT people tell back end means now going through the program to go to the back and see what is at the front, and you can even change things. In fact, one of the reasons why the access to the back end, that's like not necessarily the source code, but to the software reading the program, was restricted to a few people, because if someone, let's say Kolebu, gets access to the back end, assuming this guy had given source code and you can just go and read and everything, the revenue that Kolebu is supposed to generate from, let's say, pharmacy, if it should be, let's say, 100 million, someone from the back end can change the figures you are seeing in the screen, it will come to 40. So unrestricted access can even jeopardize the system itself. So with all due respect, what I see is a matter of two parties who there's been a change in government, and one party appears either not too comfortable with the gentleman, like the company, or wish to work with someone else. It's well and good. It's their prerogative. If they think that they can get value by going for someone to restart a whole program that you're almost just 20%, it's up to Ghanaians to judge. Now, when the Honorable Akandoh was asked, are you going to have access to the data that Lightwave has built? He said he's going to pass through National Health Insurance to go and reconstruct data that he could have easily gotten if the two parties had found a way to resolve their issues. And so, Moro, all I will say is that the same contract in clause 28.1 and 28.2 talks about how to resolve disputes. There are two things I'll mention in the clause. The clause. It says that if within 28 days the two parties are unable to resolve a dispute, they should go for mediation, third-party mediation. Moro, anyone who, I'll not even say studied law, anyone who has common sense and is fair would understand why they are saying third-party mediation. Because when two parties have a contract or have had a relationship, one can make a demand which is either untrue, unreasonable, or dishonest. The only person that can look at documents, look at the history, and make a fair judgment is an objective third party. Moro, you understand?
Right.
Throughout all this brouhaha about Lightwave, we've only been fed with the food cooked by Honorable Akandoh and largely in his administration. And it is naturally not fair when you, Akandoh, cooking this food, you are party to the contract. So all I'm saying is that let's take our time not to be in a hurry to hang our colleagues only because maybe they are on the other side.
Right.
And that's not to say that Dr. Okoe Boye is not interested in value for money. Moro, I've told you that NPP administration moved the contract sum, which was even approved by PPA, from $186 million to $100 million.
Okay.
Remember, 23 was done for $6 million before we came. More number two, because we've been doing monitoring and evaluation, and because we've also been doing rigorous routine reconciliation, I did a post where I even mentioned that there was an occasion where our IT team, when I said IT team, those at the Ministry of Energy, there's a department for IT and statistics, was able to prove to Lightwave that you have submitted as certificates to the tune of 77, which we have paid, but our rigorous and routine reconciliation shows that when we look at overall work, there is still more work you should even do to suffice the 76. This came up before Honorable Akandoh became minister. This was through rigorous routine reconciliation, value for money request from us. When I say us, as in the previous administration. And what I didn't add, because I didn't even want to give it further or give it strength, what I didn't add is that in the same documents which Honorable Akandoh has, which I referenced from part of his handy note, it mentioned a $7.2 million, which Lightwave was also claiming for some of the integrations that they had done outside the contract. But I didn't mention it because normally the two parties, once it's a multi-year relationship, you continue to contend over claims. Oh, you have 10 million extra. You also owe me 72. But the most important thing is make sure that the work doesn't suffer, and try to mediate and resolve it yourself. So, Moro, I would like to plead and say that there are 2 recommendations I have if we want to make progress. The first recommendation is that instead of going round and round, behaving like we can never have access to all this data, let's get a third party. When I say third party, Attorney General is not a third party. I have mentioned the name of the Chief of Staff somewhere that he should help. It's not a third party. They are all government, you understand? But I am hoping that they would be able, and please, I'll make this disclosure. Akandoh has been a ranking member for about 5, 6, 7 years or so. Akandoh has reviewed and have seen documents about Lightwave's work. Moro, Akandoh knows of the scope of this project. So, he is someone who's had dealings with Lightwave not in 10 months, but over 5 to 6, 7 years through his oversight role. Maybe, I'm not saying that's the case, this 6, 7 years relationship, maybe there could be some biases or problems which is making it difficult for them to have a resolution. As the clause contract said, let a mediator come in. If the mediator comes and says that I've re-looked the comments from these 2 parties, this is where I would put things. Lightwave must bring all the data. He can go. But because of ABC infrastructure he has put in, can he also get ABC? If both agree, that's an amicable separation. It makes you get all the value you have invested. It makes Ghana also have the option to choose. But I don't think it is proper where you let go of one private company, go for another private company, and not be interested in, even if the contract date has expired, not be interested in a legitimate termination process that secures you all your interest and largely also addresses the interest of the one you want to separate.
Just a couple of questions before Felix, you come in.
Yes.
One, the contract was signed in 2019.
Yes.
And it was a 3-year contract.
Yes.
From 2019 to 2022.
Yes.
And by 2022,
yes,
how many health or hospitals or health facilities were Lightwave able to connect and digitize by 2022?
With all due respect,
okay,
maybe I can get you the mass and the breakdown.
Okay.
But all I know is that as at 2022 that it was supposed to expire,
okay,
not all had been onboarded.
Right.
And I think it's important, without going into a lot of basics, to explain quickly that when you give someone a project to build, let's say, a head office for Metro,
right,
and let's say $10 million, you know that all he's doing is maybe adding blocks and materials, and then he's supposed to finish in 12 months. This project requires a company to work with people who should either have capacity already or be trained to come on board, right, and finish a job in, how do you call it, in 3 years. And it's the whole Ghana.
Okay.
I am sure that the reasons that the company gave for wanting more time were legitimate. Otherwise, we would have thrown them off long time ago.
Okay. So, so by 2022,
yeah,
they couldn't deliver, right? I mean, we can later look at the reasons they gave, but they couldn't deliver by 2022, and so it was extended by another 1 year.
Yes. 2022
to 2023, they still couldn't deliver, and it was extended from 2023 to December 2024, and they still couldn't deliver.
No, it was extended only twice. So
okay.
Although I was not listening to your dates.
2019 to 2022 was the contract period.
Yes.
They couldn't deliver.
Yes.
And then from 2022 to 2023
was the first extension.
Oh, was the first extension.
Yes.
And then 2023 to 2024, they still couldn't deliver.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now, your argument is that let's not look at the numbers in terms of, so you say, we gave you 950 facilities to network, and you delivered 450.
Yes.
But let's look at what was delivered.
The workload.
The workload. Yes. So size and magnitude and so on. They say, and you gave us the breakdown. I think that I did some my own checks before I came here.
Yes.
And you're saying that per the breakdown, when you look at the number of hospitals that have been able to network, which is the 450, that's 500 health centers that have not been networked. the amount of resources, which includes time,
yes,
and financial resources that you need, and even skills and competencies to do it, is far less.
It's less than 20%.
It's less than 20%. Okay, so you're saying that on that basis,
yes,
you do not think that the decision by the government, of course, represented by the health minister, to discontinue the contract is a very sound one. You don't think that this is a sound one?
There are two things.
And no, I'm coming. I've just mentioned one.
No, I've not.
Which
I'll not necessarily say it's not sound. There are two things.
Right.
The first one is that when you use the expression they couldn't deliver, it's not even fair.
Right.
Once there's a contract, it's two parties trying to achieve milestones.
Right.
So when I say we, both the vendor working together with the hospitals could not.
Okay.
Because the timelines is dependent from day one, not only on the vendor's efficiency, but on the readiness and cooperation of the hospitals.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, as someone who has been at the ministry, there were hospitals where we had to call them. In fact, there were hospitals that the med soups were threatened to be sacked if they don't onboard Lightwave, because some were resisting. Because when you get on the system, you now don't have the chance to procure yourself an IT system, because some people had procured themselves, and their procuring meant that they were in charge of the process. Some hospitals too didn't want to come about because the Lightwave makes us see all your revenue stream.
Okay.
Because everything you do has been captured on the system. So, as someone who has been at the ministry, I am telling you that there were many occasions where the deadlines being missed were occasioned by actors within our system. And that's why I like the term for us to use we.
Okay.
And please, sometimes it's easy to forget that from increments 1957 to 2016, when this project started, nowhere in this country was this thing happening or had been done.
Okay.
So you can look and say that, they've only done 450. But if it was that easy to do, are you gonna? And this is not to give even an excuse to the company, but I like the term we because my experience shows that there were times when Lightwave was moving, others were sleeping. And we had to threaten that if you don't move. In fact, when I was Okoe Boye CEO, I held meetings with management to tell them that this thing is so good that they shouldn't frustrate it. It was all part of the reason why Okoe Boye also came on board. So, Moro, I say use we.
Okay.
The second one too is that I've never said anywhere that Akandoh going for another private company with the name Ghana is not sound. It's up to Daniel to judge whether if you've traveled on a journey with someone for 8 years. In fact, when you add the few months of NDC time, the one they did for 8.5 years, and he's done 80% of the work you need to be carried out. I like the 80% because I've told you the 400 and whatever health centers is equivalent to the work you have to do in just Okoe Boye and Kofanochi.
Right.
So the question is that when you've traveled with someone on a journey, you want a road to be done at a difficult area. You have a contractor who, out of 100 kilometers of this road, has done 80 kilometers.
Okay.
Is it wise to say that, you should have done this road in 4 years, but you've done it in 6 years? So at this 80-kilometer mark, pack your tools and leave here. I am giving it to a new contractor. Whether it's sound, if I were Minister for Health, I would have endured 6 months or 12 extra months to complete this project and ask for terms that will make sure that whatever capacity we need to run the system, we run it with very limited remote support from Lightwave going forward.
Okay.
But Okoe Boye, I'm aware that Akandoh is not compelled. This administration is not compelled to follow with what I would have done. But this is my plea to the NDC administration. If you want to do away with a vendor, do it in a tidy manner so that whatever is due you get it.
Okay.
And so that you are also tolerant enough to hear whatever the vendor thinks. I'm choosing my words well. The vendor thinks is due them. If the two of you cannot separate amicably, get the help of a third party as prescribed in the contract document.